This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. The news cycle keeps turning, and we're all just tumbling around in it. Here's what we've got for you tonight. A big chunk of the workforce has gotten used to working from home, and that may not be changing even after the pandemic. Plus, Kanye West's presidential run has gone from internet punchline to a potential election spoiler with the help of Republican strategists. But first, tonight's big stories. In Chicago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot warned of a crackdown after overnight looting in downtown shopping districts.
But regardless, what occurred in our downtown and surrounding communities was abject criminal behavior, pure and simple. And there cannot be any excuse for it, period.
Chicago police say they arrested more than 100 people after looting left businesses destroyed. The police superintendent said the department dispatched more than 400 officers. While the overall destruction can't and shouldn't be ignored, precipitating factors shouldn't either. Tempers flared in Chicago's Inglewood neighborhood earlier Sunday after police shot a 20-year-old man after he reportedly shot at police. Some residents and police say misinformation about the shooting led to heightened tensions in Inglewood between residents and police. Here's how one man described the scene.
But I can tell you right through the door that the police came out. They weren't here to serve and protect. They wasn't here to mediate or keep peace.
Lebanon's entire government has resigned after the explosion in Beirut that killed at least 160 people and left more than 300,000 people homeless. For nearly a year, there have been demonstrations demanding the current leadership step down, and this explosion was just the tipping point. Critics have pinned the explosion on neglect and corruption from Lebanon's government. In recent days, government leaders admitted they knew about the 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate stored in Beirut's port well before the explosion it caused. More than 97,000 kids across the U.S. tested positive for the coronavirus in the last 2 weeks in July, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. That number makes up a quarter of all child cases since March. This comes as schools reopen their doors for the upcoming academic year. A recent study showed older kids can transmit the virus just as easily as adults. This comes as the U.S. crossed another grim milestone this weekend: 5 million confirmed cases of coronavirus. And as lawmakers debate the details of the next stimulus package, the president decided to take matters into his own hands this weekend. But his series of executive orders might not have as much impact as it seems. We'll break it down for you. For one, President Trump wants new weekly unemployment benefits that likely only ensure $300 from the federal government, as opposed to the $600 jobless Americans have received over the past months. The president said he'll pull from the disaster relief funds for the money and lean on states for another $100 per person each week. He also signed an executive order on evictions, but it's a measure that will only help about 1 in 4 renters facing eviction. For months, a ban on evictions passed by Congress prevented landlords from evicting their tenants unable to make rent. With that ban now expired, Trump wants to take measures into his own hands, but it only helps residents of buildings with federally guaranteed mortgages. Another order from the president deferred payroll taxes. Employers have until December 31st to pay it. But here's the thing, a lot of these orders deal with federal spending, something Congress generally has authority over, which is leading to all sorts of questions over whether these orders are constitutional. More Americans are coming around to the idea of working at home, even after the coronavirus pandemic is over. But that doesn't mean that working from home situations are all ideal. Newsy's Kat Sandoval has more on how people are dealing with new working norms.
6 months into the coronavirus pandemic, remote work may be the norm well after the virus subsides. But many people are finding that work from home means they're working more.
I think work-life balance is a facetious statement that doesn't mean much. There's just life.
Shane Perlman runs digital agency Modern Tribe. His team of 130 plus employees have been entirely remote for 14 years.
Remote work isn't for everybody by default, and that's okay.
Harvard Business Review found remote work days were 10 to 20% longer than office days. Perlman says company collaboration is key to creating a digital work environment.
Healthy teams are based on trust, and that trust comes from knowing somebody well enough to understand how they're going to react to situations. Trust is predictability.
And Perlman says you can nurture trust through digital connections like social Slack channels.
Everybody, big day.
Hi, cuties. Hi. How's everyone's day?
Taking some time to plan out off-limit work hours and set boundaries on what types of communications can wait, like emails, can go a long way in making the best use of working from home. But for Americans who have kids, working from home can be difficult. Mandy Price consults companies on their work culture.
You can't assume that your employees have childcare during a pandemic. One of the things that we've also recommended employers do is to provide your employees with stipends.
That extra cash can help pay for babysitters or in-home care. A July Newsy Ipsos poll found that more Americans who work from home prefer to do so, even when it becomes safe to work in the office.
You need to consciously design your day and your life. Because nobody's going to do it for you.
Kat Sandoval, Newsy.
Working from home isn't exactly an option for me at the moment, so we're going to throw you a few ads while I get even more accustomed to being alone with my thoughts. Hurry back.
There's 3 American girls competing for the top 2 Olympic spots.
I could go into this and come out with nothing.
You know that tumbling through the news cycle we mentioned earlier? Yeah, we're still not done. We suggest you tuck and roll through the next few minutes. Here's what's trending. Looks like you have to take down your Totino's pizza rolls and brews while watching something else on Saturday mornings this fall. The Big Ten and Pac-12 conferences, 2 of the major Power 5 conferences, are reportedly planning to cancel their upcoming college football seasons as soon as tomorrow. This comes as several players from across Power 5 conferences banded together to safely play this season. Other Division I conferences have already hit the pause button or just canceled fall sports this season. A gas explosion in Baltimore killed 1 woman and leveled 3 row homes Monday. If you're familiar with the area, the explosion happened in the Labyrinth and Reisterstown Road area. Other people were injured in the explosion, and firefighters sifted through the rubble to ensure residents were accounted for. Firefighters are still investigating the cause of the explosion. USPS is trending for a few different reasons today that all likely stem from widespread package delays and a downed tracking system that happened over the weekend. None of this bodes well for an upcoming general election that'll see tons of mail-in ballots. On Friday, the USPS announced an organizational overhaul to refocus the business after losing $2.2 billion in the latest quarter. The mail agency's troubles have led to delivery delays felt by many, including former South Carolina Governor and UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, who tweeted about her #disappointednephew. Democratic lawmakers are calling for an investigation into the USPS's cost-cutting measures that have led to the delays. We've done a lot of things over Zoom the last few months, some things I'd rather not talk about, so it should come at no surprise that in-person activities like American Idol auditions are also moving online. Newsy's Casey Mendoza got a chance to chop it up with one of the show's producers to talk about the American singing competition in the age of coronavirus.
So you want to become the next American Idol, but you don't want to get in line with thousands of people, or maybe you just don't want to leave your house. We totally get it, and so do the producers behind the competition. This year, for the first time in American Idol's 18-year history, the show is hosting virtual auditions.
The really cool thing about it is that it has never been easier to audition for American Idol because you're auditioning literally in the comfort of your own home.
Because the Idol Across America auditions are fully virtual, the new season is also able to look for contestants in all 50 states for the first time in the show's history.
So if anyone's ever auditioned before, it's more or less the same process where normally there'd be a big line. You remember those big, the big lines that we usually have at all of our auditions. Well, it's going to be basically in a Zoom holding room.
Elfar adds that the virtual auditions in front of producers will run pretty much like in-person auditions as well. You'll sing, they'll get feedback, and a lucky few will pass on to the next round and perform for the show's celebrity judges.
We just have to take it day by day and just kind of learn and grow and just figure out what do we do next.
When the pandemic first started, American Idol was the first reality competition series to go all virtual. Other shows like The Voice quickly followed suit, but America's Got Talent is starting on-stage live shows without a studio audience on Tuesday. Casey Mendoza, Newsy, Chicago.
This latest season of American Idol will likely air next February. Luckily for the William Hungs out there, you can always hit the leave meeting button instead of listening to judges tell you your singing is trash, right?
Getting caught up on the news needs to work with your schedule, and Newsy has you covered. Download our streaming app for Roku and Amazon Fire TV to get up to speed with the biggest stories of the day. Newsy, be informed, not influenced.
Excited that you found Newsy's clear, straightforward news reporting? Just remember, you can come back every morning for fresh, up-to-date stories and get your day started with news that matters most to you. On your schedule, anytime you need us, every day. All facts, no opinion. We're Newsy. Be informed, not influenced. For the longest time, I thought defending Kanye's 2013 album Yeezus was going to be one of the hardest things I'd have to do as a fan. Now, in 2020, I'm having some trouble sorting out if Kanye's late registration into the presidential election is for real. As Newsy's Willie James Inman tells us, not only is this actually happening, Kanye's reportedly getting help from the GOP.
Rapper and fashion designer Kanye West says he's running for president to win. But he told Forbes magazine in a text message interview that part of the reason he's running is to hurt Democrat Joe Biden's chances of winning. This comes after reports surfaced that West, a longtime supporter of President Donald Trump, has received help from GOP operatives to get on the ballot in key states, a plan that some say is targeted to take away black voter support from Biden.
What do you make of Kanye West getting into the presidential race this way?
When I first heard the news about this, I had three feelings that came over me. One was outrage, one was shock, and one was not being very surprised at all. I was outraged because this is clearly a political ploy by Republicans to get Kanye West on the ballot in order to siphon votes away from the Democrats.
Since announcing his bid in a tweet on July 4th, West has sought to distance himself from the president and focus on his own political ambitions. He first floated the idea of running for president during an appearance at the 2015 MTV Video Music Awards. So far, West has qualified in at least 7 states, with some inspecting his applications. The latest 2 states are Wisconsin and Ohio, where his filing is still pending review. Democrats in the Buckeye State are threatening to fight back in court. In a statement, the Ohio Democratic Party exclusively told Newsy, quote, "We are concerned about reports that Republican operatives have been coordinating the effort to get a supposedly independent candidate on the ballot in Ohio and other states. We are scrutinizing their process and petition signatures closely for fraudulent activity and will take legal action as warranted." The Trump campaign denied knowing anything about West's plan after it was reported that a lawyer connected to the campaign was helping West in Wisconsin. The president was asked about Kanye's campaign at a recent White House press conference.
I like Kanye very much. No, I have nothing to do with him getting on the ballot. We'll have to see what happens. We'll see if he gets on the ballot, but I'm not involved.
There's been widespread speculation about the seriousness of West's presidential campaign after a bizarre appearance at a rally in South Carolina, which sparked his wife, Kim Kardashian West, to put out a statement about his struggle with bipolar disorder. Despite all this, Republican strategist Dennis Cook says the Kanye West campaign could actually have an impact on the 2020 race, especially in states like Wisconsin, where Trump's margin of victory was less than 23,000 votes.
And if you get Kanye is able to become successful and get on that ballot, especially before early voting and absentee voting begins, it could have a significant impact in a race in a state like Wisconsin or Ohio, where you have African Americans or other disenfranchised voters selecting for Kanye. It's quite possible that his candidacy could take a percentage or 2 away from either Biden or the president.
In Milwaukee, Democratic officials say they plan on talking to young black voters about West.
We're trying to educate folks to make sure that they don't get duped. Kanye West is out here as a gun for hire,
for the Trump administration, for Donald Trump's campaign, in order to give him another 4 years in the White House.
And Kanye West faces an uphill battle in his bid for the White House since he's missed the deadline to file paperwork to be on the ballot in several states like New York, Texas, and Florida. But he does have the opportunity to file paperwork in at least over a dozen states that have deadlines in August or later. Willie James Inman, Newsy, Washington.
How about this? Since we just watched a story on the king of hot takes, feel free to send me yours using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. I don't regret giving you all a direct line to me. Yet.
The number of African migrants arriving at Mexico's southern border has soared. Immigration officials tag African migrants entering Mexico as apatrida, or stateless.
By now, you've likely heard of Operation Warp Speed, the Star Trek-sounding program to expedite the vaccine testing, approval, and distribution process. But as Newsy's Lindsay Thies reports, some experts are warning that the vaccine race can't trade safety for speed.
As potential COVID-19 vaccines barrel through trials, one top medical expert says researchers can't sacrifice safety as they rush ahead.
Operation Warp Speed aims to do in several months what often takes years in the traditional vaccine process. Safety and efficacy are always number one priority when it comes to vaccine development. So whether it's accurate or not, this title does send a bit of a mixed message.
Right now, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer lead the race, each trying to enroll 30,000 people in their different studies, underway now. Johnson & Johnson expects to do the same in September. In a virtual forum Friday, American Medical Association President Dr. Susan Bailey broke down the challenges drug makers face, including an aggressive timeline. The CDC, FDA, and HHS want 100 million doses of a COVID vaccine by January 2021. President Trump has said he wants a vaccine by the November election.
Even if we had 30,000 people enrolled today, which we don't, 90 days takes us to the 1st of November. That's incredibly optimistic, and it will be a challenge to make that happen.
Diversity is a huge challenge too. Dr. Bailey echoed what other public health officials have also said. More diverse vaccine volunteers are needed.
Historically, African Americans make up only about 5% of clinical trial participants. Hispanics, far less.
A vaccine is still the best bet against fighting the coronavirus. Otherwise, Bailey says the alternative, waiting until enough people survive COVID-19 or become immune to make spread unlikely, is a long ways off. For Newsy, I'm Lindsay Thies.
We are 6 months into the coronavirus pandemic, and it's been a slog. We've reported on PPE shortages, but more than half of U.S. states are seeing a different kind of deficit, a lack of ICU doctors. Newsy's Shira Tarlow reports on how some experts are responding to the shortage.
Throughout the coronavirus pandemic, many states have faced critical shortages of ventilators, hospital beds, and personal protective gear. Now, amid a new surge in cases, shortages of key medical equipment aren't the only challenge facing the nation's healthcare industry. There's also a shortage of ICU staff.
When people think about the surge in cases, they think about hospitalizations, maybe beds and deaths. But they're not thinking about whether there's sufficient staff to be able to care for the patients that we have.
3 states seeing an influx of cases are short on doctors, and 23 others are strained. That's according to researchers at the George Washington University, led by Dr. Patricia Pittman. The team built a state hospital workforce estimator to help states analyze demand for healthcare workers in relation to the number of coronavirus cases.
Because it's easy to set up new beds, as we saw in New York and Central Park, but it's not easy to train up these professionals. You actually have to have policies in place in anticipation to be able to get them to where they need to be.
Pittman hopes the tool, updated weekly, will help state policymakers plan for spikes in cases and potential shortfalls of key ICU staff. To meet demand for coronavirus care, hospitals in high-need states can shift to plans that expand capacity, deploy and recruit health workers from states with less demand, recruit retirees back into practice on a temporary basis, and transition final-year medical students into practice. States, meanwhile, can temporarily ease licensing and telemedicine requirements.
The virus is not affecting states sort of in an equal way at the same time. And so in some ways that's advantageous because you can move those resources across states according to need.
Pittman says the pandemic has shed light on many inequalities and also the need for more data.
States could do a better job and federal government could do a better job working with states to help them have a robust data set so that when these things happen, we can not only anticipate the demand, but also anticipate what's happening in terms of the supply of health workers. Because there is no healthcare without health workers.
That's it for us, gang. Hopefully you're still upright after that whirlwind of a show. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place for more In the Loop. More top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.